Good morning. Good morning, everybody. Oops. I am Beth Heiserman, Vice President of the Zonta Club of the Santa Clarita Valley. Welcome everybody today to the Zonta Club of Santa Clarita Valley's Life Forward Workshop, Communication and Relationship Skills. Being more effective with family in the workplace and community. To make everyone and all our guests feel comfortable today while we record this workshop, we have privacy settings. Feel free to click on the stop video to disable your camera. The presentation will be recorded live on Facebook and then be uploaded and available to view on our Instagram and our website. Please feel welcome to share this with friends and family. We are requesting that everyone remain muted. And then when we do the question and answer section, feel comfortable to unmute. And during this whole presentation, if you like to ask any questions, feel free to put them in the chat and we will answer them as we go along or at the end. And now I present Phyllis Walker, Chair of our Life Forward Committee.
So welcome everyone to this important Life Forward workshop, Communication and Relationship Skills. Be more effective with your family in the workplace and community. It gives me great pleasure to introduce our speaker, Wendy Amara. Wendy is back by popular demand as she has presented several workshops for Zonta. She is a highly accomplished transformational strategy coach, speaker, trainer, and best-selling author. She has coached thousands of individuals over the past 12 years into achieving powerful goals for their lives. Her results-oriented, no holding back approach opens up new possibilities for her clients and has them stay accountable for producing extraordinary results. Wendy has coached many prominent individuals, including numerous CEOs of large companies and high-positioned appointed and elected officials. She supports all her clients with gaining more clarity, connecting to their vision, and developing a plan of action for their life that will skyrocket them to their goals. She creates breakthrough opportunities and consistency in action toward her clients and most meaningful goals. She is a contributing author to the best-selling book, The Art and Science of Success, and lives locally with her husband, her 10-year-old daughter, and her 7-year-old boy and girl twins. Now, Wendy, the stage is yours to share your expertise and help us learn how to communicate better and improve our relationships, the two most important areas of our lives.
Yes, thank you so much. Thank you, Phyllis. Thank you, Zonta Club. Thank you, Beth, Colleen, all of you that are here. It's such a pleasure to be here with all of you. So I'm pretty casual. I'm pretty casual and transparent because I think that works, especially when you're teaching information like communication and relationship building. Vulnerability and transparency works in relationships oftentimes, especially when you're wanting to gain trust. So I'm going to model that for us by just being really raw and real. So as Phyllis is reading that whole introduction, I'm thinking, oh yeah, I got to rewrite that long bio. So it's shortened and more to the point. But like Phyllis was just saying, I've been presenting at Zonta Clubs. I don't know if Phyllis, this is my 4th presentation or something like that, 3rd, 4th, 5th, maybe, I don't know. I stopped counting, but when I moved to Santa Clarita, 13 years ago or so, one of the first places I reached out to and looked for was a place that I could come and get support from fellow women. And that's what attracted me to Zonta, was that it was women-centered, that it was about empowering women. And so then I came to a workshop with my daughter, who was 1 or 2 at the time, and now she's 10. So 8 years ago, this is before I even thought I could have twins, or that wasn't even my, radar. And I met Phyllis 8 years ago at this Zonta event, and I loved the workshop. And I was like, I could contribute to this. I can support. As a coach, as a life coach, I've been a life coach for 15 years. there's certain skill sets that I've picked up throughout the years. And one of the things that I'm most passionate about is teaching the skill sets that I've learned and that have improved my life. And so today I'm going to teach you guys some information about communication. And I'm going to teach you how communication is really foundational for relationship building. Okay. So we're going to talk about how to use communication as a way to build relationships. I'm open to taking questions. So if you have any questions while I'm presenting, go for it. Put it in the chat and Beth will catch them, or I will catch them, or Phyllis or somebody. Also at the end, I'm going to leave time for question and answer. And I'll share a little bit more about myself and answer any questions that you have about me or my journey or my life also. I live in Santa Clarita also with some of you that are here. So I'm excited to be talking to fellow, Santa Claritians, people who live near me, right? In our area, in our community. I'm excited to be presenting for our community. All right, I'm going to share my screen. Everybody tell me if you can see this. If you can see this, raise your hand, or your virtual hand if you'd like. Thank you, Colleen. Yes. And those of you that are off camera, you can definitely use the little virtual like thumbs up. Thank you, Jeanette. Yeah, I see Jeanette Cruz's thumbs up to let me know if you can see me. I may also ask you questions like, can anybody relate to this? And please feel free to use the thumbs up also. As much interaction as you'd like to have with me in this presentation is welcomed. All right, we're going to talk about communication and relationship skills, how to be more effective with your family, in the workplace, and in community, okay? I'm going to teach you a set of foundational tools that you can use in all three areas of your life. You can use it with your family, you can use it in the workplace, and you can use it in community building or in when you're with people outside in the community, whether that's at church or friends or, whatever you've got going on. All right, I am excited to get started. Let me click there. Okay, in this workshop, you will learn, number one, how to communicate effectively. I'm going to teach you some specific skills under how to communicate effectively. One of the skills I'm going to teach you is the key questions to ask yourself before any important conversation. Actually, before any conversation, but definitely before important conversations. I'm also going to teach you some shifting of perspective on how to motivate others through your words to take a particular action. That means, how do you communicate to someone when you want to change their behavior or inspire them to take a particular action, right? We're going to talk about how to have difficult conversations. Yes, those conversations that we all avoid having because they're uncomfortable. Well, I'm going to teach you some methodologies that will help you to actually face the uncomfortableness and have those conversations. And then I'm going to teach you a really easy communication tool that will improve all of your relationships for the rest of your life. So you're probably going to learn a couple of techniques today that if you start implementing them will improve your life for the next 30, 40 years. And some of these tools I learned 20 years ago and I still use them. Sometimes daily, I use them daily to help me get things across to people, to help, we're communicating every day. So communication is really foundational to building all relationships. Okay, let's get started with number one. How to communicate effectively. Yes, effective communication, right? What is effective communication, first of all? Effective communication means that what you want to get across has landed with the other person, right? And there's some questions you have to ask yourself before you have any important conversations. It all starts with you. So let me give you the memo. The key to communication is you taking full responsibility for your side of the street, for you deciding, okay, I'm going to make sure that I'm being as efficient, effective as possible in this communication interaction, right? Yes. Number one question you want to ask yourself, what is my intention with this communication? What's the purpose? What's the point? Am I communicating because I just need to be heard and understood? Because sometimes we want to communicate just to get the stuff off our chests, right? There are times with, for example, and I'll ask you guys some questions also, but there are times, for example, with my husband where I just want to kind of vent. I'm just communicating to get stuff off of my chest. I don't need him to solve anything. I don't need him to answer any questions. I literally just want him to hold space for me, like hold the space of letting me kind of get all my feelings out. So question number one, before you communicate with somebody else, what's my intention? Is it to be heard and understood? Is it to inform the other person of something? Am I just trying to let the other person know, hey, the meeting got moved from 5 o'clock to 6 o'clock? That's a different intention, right? Is it just to get information across? Or is it to change someone's mind or affect change in the person, change their behavior? Is it connected to giving them feedback? Am I trying to land something with them? Am I trying to communicate to them that, you know what, I really do need you to clean your room in the mornings? For example, when we're dealing with our kids, right? Or I need you to be on time if we're talking to someone that works for us, for example. Or, you know, I need you to make sure you put gas in the car before you return it to us. If we're talking to our teenager who just learned to drive, whoever. So what is your intention? Another way to ask this question is, what would be a successful conversation? What would success in this conversation look like? How would I define success in this conversation, right? Is it just that the person walks away and says, yeah, I got it? Or is it that they do something differently? Or is it that they just heard what you had to say and feel connected to you? Sometimes we just want connection through communication. That's it. That's what the purpose of having the conversation is. It's not always, right, that we need something from them or we want to get something out of the conversation at the end. So what is my intention in the conversation? Question number one. By the way, this is a really good question also for any meeting you're walking into, any networking event you're walking into for work. What is my intention? Why am I here? Yeah, I'm here to network, but what would success look like at the end of this conversation or at the end of this meeting or at the end of this interaction? What would success look like for me? What do I want to get at the end of this? For example, with a networking event, it might mean I want to meet these 5 key people in the room, or I want to walk away with 5 new connections. That's a clear intention. Okay, that's number one. What is my intention? Number 2, what do I want to communicate? Be clear. Clarity is so important. In fact, most communication efforts fall apart if there isn't clarity. And who needs to be clear first? Who's the person who's got to be clear? Raise your hand if you know who needs to be clear first. You, right? You, the person, you who's communicating has to be clear. What am I trying to communicate here? Yes. Sarah, thank you. Aneli, thank you. Yes, you have to be clear first. Oftentimes you'll ask yourself this question, what am I trying to communicate here? What's the clarity I want to get across? And I kid you not, 50% of the time when I ask myself this, I realize I'm not clear. Like, oh, well, is it that I want her to, you know, always forward me these emails, for example, if you're talking about a team environment or a coworker, or is it that I want her to feel this or feel that? And then I start questioning in my mind, and then I realize I'm not clear yet. I'm not clear what I'm trying to communicate. So let me back off and do some work on my own to gain clarity until I'm clear, and then I can come to the other person. The other person is going to be more open to what you have to say if you're clear. Let me repeat that. This is big because we don't think about clarity. Oftentimes we're in our emotional state. And so we just want to get whatever we want to get across. But we haven't practiced saying it in a very concise way, right? Clarity has to do with like conciseness. Like, am I going to make a request? If I'm going to make a request, what is the request? I'll give you an example with, I'm going to use my husband a lot today, apparently, because he's gonna, I know there's also a question. I do that, catch myself, and even said, did this make sense? Because sometimes I don't. Yes, Sarah, yes, exactly. Sometimes we don't make sense. And sometimes it doesn't happen until we are communicating it. In the process of communicating it, right? That we're like, Oh yeah, okay, oops, let me get clear. And sometimes I literally have to say to the other person, hold on, I'm not making sense. So let me go back and, and let me get clear and then I'll come back to you. But with my husband once, I was like, I just need you to be more loving. For example, this was me communicating. I need you to be more loving. And he's like, what do you mean? Like, what do you mean by loving? Like that means something different to different people. Like I am being loving. I came home and I gave you a hug. That's not loving. That is loving, but that's not how I interpret loving. That's great. I love that you gave me a hug. And what I would really like is after you give me the hug, that you go wash the dishes. That would really help me feel like you are loving the work that I'm up to, loving me, loving, supporting me. So we have different definitions of what love is, right? The 5 languages of love, different definitions of what being supportive is. We have different definitions of what, better communication is. If you tell somebody, I need you to communicate better. I need you to be more clear in your communication. That's still somewhat vague, right? What does that mean? Well, when you send an email, for example, here's a clarity example. Instead of, I need you to improve your communication, you can make a request of, when you send an email, I would really like you to highlight in yellow the action steps you want me to take. That's specific, right? In the example with my husband, instead of, I need you to be more loving, I need you to, when you come home, I appreciate the hug. And then if you could wash the dishes before 9 p.m., that would be great. That would really help me out. And that help makes me feel really loved. Do you guys see the difference? Raise your hand if you see the difference in the clarity part, right? Yeah. Yeah, specific and clear, right? So what do I want to communicate? What is my intention? What do I want to communicate? The last one, this is big. And this is a simple tool, by the way. You can practice these, okay? The last one, am I in the right state of mind to make this request, to have this conversation, to get this off my chest, whatever it is? Yes. You have to be mindful of your emotional state. Our emotional state messes up more communication than even not being clear if we're not in the right emotional state, right? If we're hyped up because we just had a situation come up where we feel hurt, we feel disrespected, or we feel frustrated about something, right? That isn't usually the best place to come from if you're going to communicate with someone. Usually you've got to shift off of those emotions. So process those emotions and then get off of them, depending on what the purpose of the conversation is. If you're calling your best friend and your intention is just to vent and to have your best friend hold space for you to vent, then it's okay that you're on an emotional roller coaster, because you're literally going to tell your friend, listen, this just happened. I just need to get this off my chest. And then you're going to go into full frustration venting mode, right? But if your intention is to go back to the person who caused the frustration or caused you to feel disrespected, and you come to them in that emotional state, I guarantee you, they're not going to be open to hearing you. They're going to get defensive. And you're going to be defensive. And then it's just 2 defensive people. You're defensive, they're defensive. Yes. And it depends on what your intention is. If your intention is to get into a fight, or your intention is to cause more frustration, then that's okay. Then that's what you intended to happen. But if your intention is to solve the problem or to communicate something to them that lands with them, then that's different. Right? That's a different kind of, that's not going to happen if you're coming from a place of frustration, anger, resentfulness, all of that. That's not going to happen. What's sad about this with the emotional state is that for some of us, we're living in certain emotional states with some people. Like with some people in our lives, we literally have in our mindset, anytime we interact with them, there's a certain level of resentment. There's a certain level of disappointment. So anytime we interact with them, we're looking at them through those lenses. Yeah. It's sad, but true. And that's part of why our communication may not work with them, or they may not be open to our communication. So be mindful of the emotional state that you're in. If you're not in the right emotional state, don't have the conversation. This isn't the right time. Go process your emotions, let the feelings come up. If you have to go punch a pillow, get your frustrations out, talking with a friend, talking to your partners or whoever, or your aunt or whoever, or go to a workout class or go do a run or do meditation or yoga or listen to a TED Talk, whatever. Go do that thing, calm yourself down, and then go through the questions again. What is my intention? What do I want to communicate? Am I in the right state of mind, or is this the right time? That's equal to, am I in the right state of mind, or is this the right time? Not only for you, but for the other person also, right? The other person's state of mind. Like, is that other person, did they just have a really hard day at work? Is this the time where I want to bring up, hey, this happened with the car today? We got to deal with it. Or can I wait an hour and they've rested a little bit and then bring it up, right? Or like whatever you want. I know with my husband, again, I'll use him as an example. And if anybody has another example, please raise your hand. I'll wait till he comes back from certain types of events. My husband's a big Star Wars fan. In fact, our twins are named Luke and Leia. They're boy-girl twins. And he made me name that Luca and Leia. I fought him on the Luca. Luca and Leia. He's a huge Star Wars fan. So when he goes to a Star Wars event and he comes home, he's in a great mood. I can request almost anything during that time. I can say, hey, those boxes in the garage, can you just put them in the recycling? And he's like, sure, babe, I got that, right? Because he's in such a good mood. I know when he comes home from those events, that's the time to catch him with any of the stuff that's been, he's been procrastinating on, let's say, in the house. Yeah. Raise your hand if you can relate to that with someone in your life. Like, it could be your kid. Like, your kid is in a good mood when they've gone. Yeah. Colleen, Jacqueline. Yeah, exactly. Or somebody else. That's part of this emotional state. Alejandra, gracias, Alejandra. Yeah, thank you, Alejandra. Yes, it's part of that, recognizing that emotional state, right? We're also, by the way, we also have emotional highs and lows, right? So there's times where we're more open to hearing what you have to say. And then there's times where we're more closed. I'm sure my kids are already figuring out when, mommy's in a better mood on Saturdays. So I'm going to ask her on Saturday if I can buy this thing on Amazon, right? There's already kind of this like looking at timing and that kind of thing. Okay, so be mindful of your emotional state. Now, do you notice anything about these three questions? What is my intention? How do I communicate? What do I want to communicate? So clarity, and am I in the right state of mind? Who do they have to do with? Because, there's two people in a communication exchange, right? Two or more. It could also be you talking to more people, but two or more people. And who do these three questions have to do with? Put in the chat. Who do these three questions have to do with? Yes, Jeanette put myself. Exactly. Alejandra. Yes, thank you. They have to do with you, not the other person. Let me give you a little secret to life. You might already know this. The only person you can control is you. 100%. So if you're trying to affect change in another person and or inspire another person, yes, that is possible, but that is only possible through you. Self-management and self-awareness. Write that in the chat. Self-management, self-awareness. This will save you tons of time in life. If you want to improve something in your life, change something in your life, improve your communication, self-management, self-awareness. Self-awareness meaning awareness of yourself, right? Like, for instance, I know I'm never going to wake up and exercise at 5 a.m. It's just never going to happen. I'm not in denial about it. I accept it. I am aware. You would have to pay me an enormous amount of money for me to get out of bed and work out at 5 a.m. I'm just never in a good mood at 5 a.m. naturally. I shouldn't say ever. I mean, yes, the days my kids were born, I was in a good mood, but but most of the time, right? So self-awareness. So, if my friend says, hey, let's work out, let's meet at 6 a.m. and go, walk up the hill, blah, blah. I just know, I'm like, yeah, no, not going to happen. It's not something I can commit to. So self-awareness is really key. Okay. Self-management, self-awareness. These 3 questions have to do with you doing the work before you go into communicating with the other person. Yes. You get to do this work. And what's great about this is this filters your communication. You start filtering it and you realize I'm not clear yet. I'm not sure what my intention is. It's not the right time right now. So then your communication becomes more effective. Maybe 50% of the time you're not communicating what you used to say because it's not the right time or you're not clear yet, right? So you wait until you're clear. All right, we're going to move on. How to motivate others through your word to take a particular action. Yes. How many of you would like to learn to do this? How do you communicate in a way using your words that changes other people's behavior? Like our kids, right? How can we speak to them from a place of changing their behavior, inspiring their behavior? Yes. This is what excellent managers do. This is what leaders do. This is what really great parents do, but also just being in a relationship with anyone. If you're in any sort of relationship with your child, with your friend, with your aunt, your uncle, whoever, cousins, this is how you inspire. And notice that the word motivation. How do we motivate people, right? Okay. Number 1, we're on the same team. You have to see yourself and the other person as on the same team. There has to be a certain level of trust, even in the workspace, guys, even with your coworker. There has to be some level of trust there in order for the person to be open to being inspired or being motivated. So this is step 1. I've had situations where I'm trying to motivate somebody, and in the process, I realize, oh, you know what? They don't trust me enough yet. So I got to go back to step 1, which is building trust. Building trust, we could do a whole workshop just on building trust. How do you build trust? How you build trust with people. But if the person does not trust you, it will be very difficult for you to affect change in them in any way, shape, or form. So there's other people, family members of mine, who I no longer try to affect change in. They're not open to my feedback. They're not open to my opinion because there is some missing trust there. That I haven't been able to gain fully the trust. So therefore, they're not open to my feedback. So you know what I do, guys? I don't give them any feedback. I don't try to motivate or inspire them. I just shift. I just surrender that. Okay, that's okay. Now, there's other people in our lives who we can't do that with, right? We can't completely just say, I'm not going to ever inspire or motivate change in you, like our children, because they're in our house, they're around us. We have to build trust with them. So that's important. One great visual for we're on the same team is that I like to do, especially when I'm in a conflict with someone. I like to picture me and them together, and like my arm is around them, their arm is around me. We're on the same team and we're looking at the challenge in front of us, like a mountain that we're going to climb together. So how do I inspire and motivate this person who we're on the same team to climb this mountain? Yeah. Depending on what emotional state you're in, that might require a lot of self-work. Because when you're angry with someone, it's really hard to picture yourself putting your arm around them and they're putting their arm around you and you're going to climb a mountain together. But that's the state you need to be in order to affect change with them. Okay. So we're on the same team as this visual. Okay. Number 2, be mindful of both of your emotional states. Again, if you're angry, you're not going to be able to motivate or inspire them. If they're angry at you, it's going to be very difficult to inspire or motivate them. Get past the anger first, move yourself to a more neutral place, and then you can inspire them. Yeah. Because when we're angry or frustrated, we get defensive. Defensive. Yeah. Okay, number 3, what would be the win for this person? Look at the situation through their eyes. What is important for them? If you're trying to inspire someone or motivate them, you have to look at life through their angle, through what you want them, through what they see as important, through what already motivates them, right? So if I wanted to motivate my husband to do something, for example, and inspire him to clean the garage, I might use something from the perspective of, hey, if there's more space in the garage, you can buy more Star Wars stuff. Because he loves Star Wars. I don't. So I'm seeing it from the perspective of what's the win for him? What inspires him? Okay. And lastly, you want to speak to them in the language that will land with them. What I mean by that is, like, my husband speaks Star Wars, whatever that language is. So if I talk to him from that perspective, he's going to move forward. It's going to be more open to him. There's also people in our lives that are more analytical. There's people in our lives that are more based on relationships. They really value relationships, right? Or they value time with us. So when you're speaking to them and trying to inspire them, think about what's going to land with them. If I talk numbers, is that what's going to work? Because some people really like to talk numbers, or they like to talk about money, or right, and that inspires them. Or some people really like to talk about, I'm going to take you on Saturday night out if XYZ gets done. So from their perspective. Okay, let's do an example of this. Communicating to change people or inspire action. Yes. Who has, there, you guys can see me now, right? Who has a question or something that they could share? Here, oh, here, Constance put in the chat. I'm a teacher, always interested in motivating students. Great. Let me look up the chat. And then Alejandra said true. And Jeanette said, yes, on my children. Who wants to learn? Beautiful. Thank you. Constance, that's great that you are a teacher, how to motivate your students, right? Here's the thing with being a teacher and motivating the students is that when I give you this visual, right, of like hugging them, I'm sure you can picture hugging all of them. The last question about how to speak to them in their language, each of them probably has a slightly different language. But you can already start to see, and put in the chat if you agree with this, Constance. You can already start to see that there's certain students that are more analytical. There's certain students that think more with their emotions. There's certain students that like friendships are super important to them, right? Other students that music are super important to them. So one of the exercises that I sometimes have teachers do, and you can do this with anybody, guys, in your life, is make a list of like the students or the top 10 people in your life and put next to them one word that symbolizes their language. But meaning not their actual language. You know what I mean by language? I don't mean English, Spanish, Chinese. I mean, how do they like to be spoken to? What is the thing that inspires them or motivates them? That if you spoke to them through this, through talking about this particular subject, they would open up. Yeah. So you make a list of your students and then you just put next to them. Like I bet you some of them will have music, video games. This is just, I'm thinking about typical teenagers. I don't know which grade you teach, but and with some people in our family, right, we can do the same thing. Like, oh, they love sports. Or if I talk about the Raiders, they're open to anything I have to say if I'm talking about the Raiders, right? Yeah. For example, this allows you to start shifting quicker into who do I need to be to communicate with this person? How can I open up possibility with this person? All right, I think there's a question in the chat. Jeanette says, I find it easier to communicating with others who learn logically like myself. The textile learners for me are the hardest, which is one of my girls. Oh yeah, yeah. Analytical, logical thinkers. Yeah, it's easier sometimes to communicate because your brain works that way, Jeanette. Yeah, great awareness. This goes to the self-awareness thing, right? So you've got to work a little harder to communicate with what you're calling textile learners. Yeah, which is harder for you to communicate with. Yeah, but practice it, take it on, because when you're talking to your daughter who speaks in that language, you've got to put that hat on and kind of take off your analytical hat, right? And put on this other hat. And so awareness in that moment is really key. The shifting between like, I've got to be this way and then I got to shift and be this way for this kid. You know, I have a child who's an empath. If anybody has ever heard of an empath is somebody who feels things strongly. Raise your hand if anybody is an empath, has felt an empath, has ever been around an empath. Empath is somebody who just feels very strong. Jacqueline, yeah. You feel people's emotions. You can walk into a room and you can feel the energy of the room emotionally. Or a kid so the empath is like, you know, the kids are playing on the soccer field. Some kid gets hurt. Everybody else keeps playing the game. One kid comes over, stops playing the game and makes sure the kid is okay. And like stays with the kid and doesn't care about the game anymore. Yeah, that's an empath. And there's there's different types, but one of my twins is an empath and I am not an empath. I can read people's emotions, but I don't take them on. So I can kind of hold space for it. She takes it on, right? And she starts feeling that. So if somebody goes into timeout in my house, she starts advocating for that person. She says, no, I don't want my brother to be in timeout. I want to be with him. She goes and sits with him while he's in timeout. She cries, even though she's the one who got hit and that's why he's in trouble. So I've had to learn this new language called emotional empaths and how to calm myself down in my heart and talk to her to calm her down, as opposed to just being like, no, your brother's in trouble. You're not in trouble. You're fine. Go play. That wasn't working with her. So example of communication. Okay, let me read what else is in the chat. She sounds lovely. She is. Oh, empaths are very special types of people. They really are. And because they feel so deeply, it can be tough to walk through life. Because imagine every time you walk into a room, feeling people's emotions, right? That's hard. Yes, sounds like my twin granddaughters. Oh, Alejandra, yeah, you have twins too. Yeah, there's a lot of twins in Santa Clarita. Okay, I'm gonna go back to my little PowerPoint, but at the end, I definitely want to take some examples. Okay, we talked about how to motivate others through our words to take particular action, right? To get them to do something or change something. Okay, how to have difficult conversations. You've got to prepare ahead and make a plan. Prepare, make a plan, and then go do it. So once you feel ready, you're never going to feel 100% ready, but make a plan. The key here is to not avoid it, because if we keep avoiding a difficult conversation, it gets bigger. It becomes, a bigger deal because we're just trying to sweep it under the rug. Okay, step one is asking yourself those key questions. If this is the only thing you get from today, this will be worth it for the rest of your life if you can memorize these 3 questions. What is my intention? What specifically do I want to communicate? Is this the right time or am I in the right emotional state? Right? What is my intention? What do I specifically want to communicate? Is this the right time? Sometimes when you ask yourself, what is my intention? And it's just to be heard, then it doesn't become as difficult when you realize, I just want this person to hear what I have to say. That's it. And allow for space for what I have to say to hold space for that. And that's it. So then sometimes it's not as difficult as we think it is. If we are giving somebody feedback and we're sharing with them a particular thing that they did that we didn't like or approve, then your intention is to land that feedback, right? Yeah. So that's different. What do I specifically want to communicate? Is it the right time? It's better if you're both in an emotionally stable space at the time of the communication. So not hyped up with anger, frustration, or low, depressed, anxious, kind of in this stable and almost neutral space. It's better to talk from the space of neutrality or in a good place even. Yeah, especially if you're going to have a difficult conversation. So be mindful of your emotional state. You cannot have someone else be open to your feedback if you're not in a calm space. Yeah. Think about like when people come up and give us feedback, if anybody has ever given you feedback. Feedback is just somebody sharing with you their experience of you or a particular situation you were involved in. So sharing with you, when you didn't call me back last night, that hurt my feelings. That's feedback. Now, if the person is angry and they come at you and say, you didn't call me back last night, that was really messed up. How do you start to feel? Tell me what comes up for you when somebody says, you didn't call me back last night. That was really messed up. Versus, hey, when you didn't call me back last night, it really hurt my feelings. It made me feel like I'm not a priority to you. I don't know if that's true or not. I'm just sharing with you how I felt. So that starts opening you up a little bit more, right? You can notice the difference. Yeah, Constance is like, I shut down. Yeah, people do shut down versus I'm open to the conversation. Thank you, Constance. Yeah, people shut down when they feel threatened. It's an automatic response. And that happens a lot. In fact, anytime you see two people fighting or arguing, they're both shut down. They're not even listening to each other anymore. They're just both shut down completely. So notice that. Lastly on this is plan ahead for what might get said and practice how you're going to react. So with difficult conversations, practicing, role playing is really key. I've role played almost all of my difficult conversations before they happen. Sometimes with myself up against the wall, I'm talking, pretending the other person, right? Sometimes I'll ask somebody that I trust, right, confidentially to role play with me. Somebody that I know will respond the way the other person will respond. But you want to go to the place of like, so if I say this, what are they going to say? They're going to say, oh, there you go again, being judgmental. There you go again, judging me again. So what am I going to say without losing it, without getting triggered? And then you go through the conversation. They're going to say this, I'm going to say this, they're going to say this. What this does is this prepares your brain for the difficult conversation. This prepares your brain to not go into flight or fight mode, to not get triggered, right? Because we're proactively setting up our brain to go into having this difficult conversation. And we've already planned out how we're going to react if they go in this direction or this direction or this direction. Keeping our intention in mind. Always keep the intention in mind. Always keep the intention in mind. You can go back to, wait, but my intention was just to let her know that this is how I'm feeling. I don't expect her to do anything about it. That's a different intention than my intention is to let her know and never have her do it again. That's a different intention, right? That's changing behavior. So notice what your intention is. Okay. I'm going to go through and then we're going to get to questions and answers. Simple tool that will improve all your communication. Dun, dun, dun. Here it is. Some of you are already using this tool, but if you're not, I highly recommend you use it and you use it for the rest of your life. Simply asking back if you got it right. It's called the listening by repeating tool. So in normal conversations, everyday conversations, but this helps improve all relationships because it makes people feel heard, like, oh, you got me. Or it clarifies, you didn't get me, and we need to move into more clarity in order for you to understand what I said. Repeat back to the person if you heard them correctly. So who wants to role play this with me? Is there anybody that, here, I'm going to stop the share. I'll be the person who's using the tool, but raise your hand if you'd like to role play with me this. It's a simple tool of what I heard you say is, but once you start using it, you realize 50% of the time, you're not really listening to people. You're already in your head, right? Deciding what you're going to say next. So it's a listening tool, which is a huge part of communication, is very key. Yeah. All right. Has anybody raised their hand that would like to practice this with me? Oh, I saw somebody. No? Here we go. All right. Constance and Annalie. I could do it with both of you. Constance, you want to go first and then Annalie? Constance,
Sure.
if you can unmute yourself. Hi. Can you hear me?
There, hi.
I'm unmuted as well.
Okay.
Oh, perfect. Okay, great. So, okay, Constance, Oh, yay, we can see you now. Woohoo. I'm all about the turn the video on.
I know. I'm a teacher, so
Oh, good. What
Yeah.
grade do you teach?
I actually college.
Oh, that's
And we're
even
back in the classroom, and motivating students has been really challenging. So kind of making up for this year and a half that they've been off on camera or off camera, and the sort of lowering of standards and accommodations made. And so trying to help them through that, that's not how we're working anymore, has been like really challenging. So this workshop just I was just looking for a little inspiration. I'm already getting some.
Oh, good.
Yeah,
Good.
so I really appreciate
Excellent. Excellent. Yes. So what I heard you say
it.
If I heard
So
you
I'm in a
correctly-
lot of trouble.
what I heard you say is it's been challenging going back to the classroom and all of the new challenges that have emerged because you guys were gone for so long and everybody was learning online and all that. Is that correct?
That is correct. Yes.
Yes. Yes.
All right. And I brought sort of pre-pandemic expectations with me, and like, okay, so now we're back, and it's not worked that way. So there's a little of my own sort of disappointment, and it's so, yeah, it's a,
So managing yourself. Exactly.
Yes.
What's my intention? What am I really trying to communicate? And self-management is the key. What is
right.
100%? What is a win here? What does success look like? Because it's different
Right.
than success pre-pandemic.
Absolutely.
So having realistic expectation, right? Yeah.
Yes. Thank you. Yeah.
Yes,
You're hearing
of course.
me.
Yes. Yes. So the key here, guys, is I kind of took what she said. She said a lot, right? And then I just kind of tried to summarize it and said, so what I heard you say is, and you can literally use those words. What I heard you say is XYZ. Is that correct? And you want to ask back, is that correct? Now, sometimes the person, because we can use this in everyday life, it doesn't have to be like a professional communication situation. It could just be like the person at the gas was like, use pump number 6. And you're like, so what I heard you say is use pump number 6. Is that correct? Sometimes people will be like, yes, that's what I said. What do you, like, why are you like, what do you think? We're in kindergarten here. Why are you repeating back? Right? So what you want to say is, I'm working on my communication skills. I'm working on my listening skills. Sometimes I'll even say that beforehand. Listen, for my own purpose, I'm working on my communication skills. What I heard you say is, and then you repeat back. And the person will say, yes, that's what I said. Or no, actually, that's not what I said. Or yes, but, meaning they said that, but what they really meant was blah, blah, all this other stuff, right? That then comes out, so it's a great tool because immediately you gain more clarity. Try it for 1 week. Try this tool, like practice it every day. So what I heard you say is, if some people are going to get annoyed with you if you're in your family, because they're like, there you go again. And you're like, yes, but I'm practicing, I'm learning. Like put the onus on yourself, right? The responsibility on yourself that you're the one learning this tool. Because one of the things that will happen is you'll start to measure how often you actually hear people. It might be, the first time I did this, it was 50-50. 50% of the time I got it right. 50% of the time I was completely off in my personal life. And I noticed when I don't have my coach hat on, I'm a coach, I'm listening, my ears kind of go, they don't listen anymore. So with my family, 50% of the time, not hearing them. So did you say dinner was at 5? No, I never even talked about dinner. Where did you get that from? And I'm like, oh my God, I don't know. I just realized how much I turn it off automatically. I wasn't even aware that I was turning off my listening with my family because in my work, it's so heightened, right? So for example, yeah. Thank you for that, Constance. That was great. Okay, who was next? Who was the other person who was going to share?
It was Annalie.
Hi, Annalie. Let me find you.
Well, I'm not showing myself today.
Okay, that's okay. Yeah. Oh, there we go. Annalie Hubinete, right? Hubinete. Okay. Nice to see you. Give me here, talk me through something and then I will repeat back to you. Tell me what you're getting from today.
All right. So I have spent 6 years in education to become a certified flight instructor. It took me 6 years to get to this point. And with my 4 daughters, they had to sacrifice a lot. And even though I was doing all this with full intentions to provide for them, they have sacrificed a lot with me not being emotionally with them, which kind of backfired now. And my ex-husband, who is being very controlling and narcissistic, he has now allowed my 3rd daughter to connect with him, and I'm starting to get very concerned about her. So I am trying very, very hard to have grown-up conversations through Talking Parents, which is our communication forum, and not react. And I'm also needing to communicate on Talking Parents for the courts to record the progress so that my full custody can be reinstated.
Okay.
And so the
Yeah,
challenge
yeah.
is not
So
reacting.
I'm gonna stop you, Adelie, because what happens in our human brain is after a while, the brain actually stops listening. Like if I'm not interacting with you, the brain will start to go into a lower listening space because there's too much information happening, right? And this is just a normal conversations. This oftentimes happens. So the only reason I'm saying okay is so that I can process what you've already shared with us. So what I heard you say, Annalie, is that you worked really hard to build a particular career when your girls were younger, and therefore there wasn't as much building of the emotional side to your relationship. And now you're wanting to build that with them. And you're having a particular challenge with your 3rd daughter in that she is communicating with your ex-husband. And so there's a concern there. Is that correct?
Right on.
All right. All right. At least I got that part right. Yes. And then the second part of what you were talking about is trying to stay patient and neutral. Yes. 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 I'm going to just tell you, try to stay neutral, because the moment we go into emotion and reaction and taking things personally, even though these are your kids we're talking about, so how can you not take it personally? But the moment you go to that place, you're no longer making rational decisions. You're making decisions from the part of your brain that is in flight or fight mode, not the part of your brain that is thinking about what's best 2 years from now, 3 years from now, what's going to be the most kind of not just logical, but overall best decision. The moment we go into emotional fight or fight, we're no longer making decisions from a stable place. So staying in neutral actually allows us to make better decisions. The key is, how do you stay in neutral, right? When there's these situations that I'm sure are triggering you. Yeah. Let me get back to that at the end, but I think that's excellent, Annalie. And yeah, I'll probably cover a little bit of that in the summary. But I just want to point that out, that your instinct of like, I'm trying to stay calm or trying to stay patient. Yes, keep working on that. Keep building your patient neutral muscle and make decisions from that place versus reaction mode. Reaction mode. Yes. Okay, great. But thank you for sharing that. I'm going to go back to sharing the PowerPoint just right now, and then I'll get back to you at the end, Annalie.
Okay.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you for that, though. I appreciate your sharing, and I appreciate you opening up and being vulnerable. Thank you. So if you could tell for everybody that was listening in the interaction with Annalie, right? This also happens where people share with us. And if the information becomes a lot for our brain to process, one of the things you can do is say, okay, hold on a second. So what I heard you say is, right? And kind of interfere in their flow so that you can capture, because the brain is going to capture communication in shorter bits, quicker than in long bits. This is why we use bullet points. This is why we use like 1, 2, 3, right? The brain is going to capture, especially now, our brain is inundated with information all day long. So it's trying to decipher. the information and divide it up. So if you need to interrupt people in a loving, kind way, compassionate way, to say, let me just make sure I heard you right. So what you just shared is excellent tool. Repeat back to people what I heard you say is, or what you're requesting is, or what you're saying is, right? And then you take responsibility also for the communication in case they get annoyed with you. Okay, I'm going to go to the next page and talk about this growth work and then do a little summary, and then we'll just do question and answers. We have until 11:15, correct?
Yes.
That feels okay, great, awesome. Okay, 2 growth work assignments. What is growth work? Growth work is like homework, but you get to do it and it requires you to grow. Yes. This is great information I just shared with you. In fact, it's a lot and it's only a little bit. We just talked about communication. I didn't even really go into like relationship building, right? Specific communications tools that build relationships. And I gave you some quick tidbits, but none of this works unless you implement it, because that's what starts changing the brain dynamic, okay? That's what starts shifting the brain into a new way of functioning. Therefore, my request, your assignment is 1, you practice listening by using this repeating tool. What I heard you say is, use it for 1 week and see what happens. See how many times you got it right. See if anybody gets annoyed with you. Do a little experiment and then keep track. So what I heard you say is, right? And sometimes it's such a gift for the other person because they don't even realize that they're showing up in a particular way. Number 2, practice asking yourself the 3 questions before the conversation happens. Do you guys remember what the 3 questions are before the conversation happens? Let's see if anybody remembers them. If you remember them, write it in the chat. I'll go over them, but I'm just giving you a quick quiz. I'm giving you a quick quiz because this is the kind of stuff that actually takes what we learned and makes it real in your life. Makes it something you can actually implement and put into practice in your life, which is what we want to do, right? If not, this will have been a great hour and a half together or 2 hours together, which is super informative. But the real test is, what do you do tomorrow in your life? What do you do tonight when you're with your family? Yeah. Let me look at the chat. Constance. Oh, yeah, everybody right. What is your intention? What do I want to communicate? Clarity and mindful state. Yes, yes. You guys are taking notes. Look at that. Annalie, great. What is my intention? What am I trying to communicate? Is this the right time? Is this the right time? And is this the right emotional state, or kind of go hand in hand, right? Because it's not the right time if you're not in the right emotional state. So it's the same question. I know I wrote it in 2 different ways, but it's the same question. Is this the right time emotionally? You know, is this the right time? Am I in the right emotional state? And is the other person in the right emotional state? Because you might be feeling great. But like, for example, with my 10-year-old daughter, I know when I pick her up from school, not the right time to talk about cleaning her room or ask her to do anything. When I pick her up from school, how was school? Great. She like needs an hour to decompress and go back to being normal daughter. And so I just kind of leave her alone for a little while, let her eat a snack, not bother her about homework. But an hour later, I can be like, hey, listen, what do you have to do for homework? And she's calmer. She's like, all right, I've got this, blah, blah. But if I ask her in the car when I'm picking her up, what do you have for homework? I don't know, Mom. I have to look at the paper. Like, it's just total attitude. I'm like, oh, all right. So I've just learned, not the right time. She's not in the right emotional state. Usually she's just tired. Okay, let's memorize them. What's my intention? What do I clearly want to communicate? Is this the right emotional time? Is this the right time? That's it. It requires you to stop and ask yourself before you go have the conversation. Trust me that it is going to save you tons of emotional drama, time, energy. It's going to save you extra communication energy that would have been drained out without getting the result that you want. It's a filtering tool for yourself. Because again, the only person we can control is us. Yeah. Okay, last page, and then we're just going to go into Q&A, and you can ask me anything. So we'll spend the last 10, 15 minutes in Q&A, if that's okay. Connect with Wendy. Yay! This is me. So just a really quick tidbit about my story. I've been a coach for 15 years, actually. So when I wrote that and sent that to Phyllis, I forgot that it's been more than 12 years. It's now 15 years I've been doing this work. Yeah. How did I become a life coach? I became a life coach because I was miserable in my life. I had done a bunch of stuff that I was supposed to do, like go to college and get a good job and get a master's degree and, build a career and get married. On paper, I looked really good. In my real life, I was miserable. And I had dealt with mental health issues. I had been diagnosed as bipolar in my 20s, didn't like the medications they gave me. Therapy never really worked. It worked to build some awareness, and I'm a big fan of therapy, but it wasn't changing my day-to-day life. And then I went and did a training, and I discovered this world called personal development and coaching and these skills that you can use in your life to improve your life. And I fell in love with the work. This was when I was in my early 20s. I'm now in my mid 40s, right? So many years. And it changed my life. And I completely changed my life. And I said, this is the work that I want to do. I used it on my life. And then I realized, oh my gosh, women need to know this. We need to share this with everybody. They need to know these tools, these skills. It's so important for our life. So that's become my passion, and what I do in my work is really share this work with women, as many women as possible, to make sure you guys are using these tools and therefore managing your mind, right? Managing your brain. I'm so much more in a content place now than I ever have been in my life. Please, if you do one thing to say thank you to me for being here in this presentation for Zonta, please follow me on Instagram. I'm new to Instagram, so it's all new, but my hashtag is Wendy Amara. So if you go to Instagram and you find me on Wendy Amara, please follow me. Thank you, whoever is putting it in the chat. You can also visit my website at wendyamara.com. It's just my name, wendyamara.com. You can find out more about my Inspired Action Tribe, which is my group coaching program. And if you have any questions or about Inspired Action Tribe, you can email me at wendy@wendyamara. I do offer a free 30-minute introduction coaching session for those of you that are interested in finding out more about one-on-one coaching or my group coaching program, or are interested in doing more work with me. Okay, that's it for my little spiel on myself. What I would really love to do is hear your questions, because then I can specifically help you in your different situations, if that's okay with the Zonta people. Oh, good. Sonia saying, thank you, Wendy, for this informative discussion. Can you please give more examples of language? Yeah. You described empath. Can you help me identify others? Yes. So, and we can do this as a group also. Let's answer this question and then we'll go back to Annalie, because I haven't forgotten about you, Annalie. Different languages that people speak. So empath is a particular type of personality, but there's also people who are speak the language of music, right? If you're ever talking to a musician or somebody who plays an instrument, they can be inspired through talking about music, through playing a particular song, right? There's people who are creatives, just creative in general, right? People that can do amazing things with like Canva and graphic art and blow my mind away. Different way to think, right? So when you're speaking with them, you want to keep that in mind. This is a creative person. I'm not going to talk about like timelines and data, right? And then the kind of, not the opposite of that, but a different mindset is people who like data and numbers and think in terms of numbers, right? And please post in the chat anybody who has other ideas of what are some of the languages that people speak, right? Different ways of communicating. Mom is a particular language. So if you're talking to a mom, something that will build trust and you can relate on is if you're a mom and you're both talking about your kids, right? Or a fellow mom who has teenagers and you have teenagers and they have teenagers. That's a specific language, right? These are all specific languages that you can connect to. Basically, what I mean by language is a way to build a bridge and get into their world and speak to them in their world language. If you're talking to somebody that has spent 20 years working in a particular industry, like an engineer, right? You might not speak engineer, but you want to keep that in mind when you are speaking to them. You want to keep this in mind that this is an engineer I'm talking about. So she probably wants to see things kind of in a strategic way. Or maybe it'll be better if I point stuff out in a linear fashion, like in a straight line, for example. Is that helpful? Does that help answer the question? Who is it that asked the question here? Sometimes it's hard for me to see the chat completely. Sonia, I think it was, yeah? Yes, and if you guys have any other, well, obviously teenager is a unique language. And that can be a particular language, right? And then there's indie music and, you know, thinking outside the box kind of stuff. That's its own world. There's, we could go down the list of like how many different, but if you know they like something, especially those of you working with students, that's a great way in. That's a great way to build trust. They're going to listen to you more the moment you mention whatever the thing is that they really like. They really like movies. Great. Hey, I saw this movie this weekend, blah, blah, blah. What did you think about it? Oh, I haven't seen that. But just the fact that you're talking about movies, there's a little opening there to inspire them. There's a little door that just slightly ajar more than it was a second ago. And now they're like, oh, what do you have to say? And then you can put in, speaking of which, did you finish your assignment yesterday? Or listen, I was thinking about you with this assignment, right? You can introduce that then, yeah. This is why I think it helps if you take the people you know and you write their names down and then you put next to their names. What's the key? What's the thing that opens the door with them? The communication door. What's the thing that will open the communication door with them? You could do this with each of your kids. You could do this with your partners or friends or colleagues or work colleagues. We all have the thing that will open the door for us. We really do. Yeah. All right, let's go back to Annalie, and then I'm going to take like maybe one more question. I'll throw it back to Phyllis. Annalie, where are you? Because I know we didn't completely. Here we go. Annalie. Okay, ask me specifically, as clearly as you can, what your question is, my dear.
All right, so I think the problem is right at the moment when you feel very confronted and confused. You know, I'm looking at my 16-year-old daughter, but it is my ex-husband that's talking, and I have a child in front of me who is now parroting something crazy, and I know we're running out of time, but you like to be open and raw, and I will be open and raw here for 15 seconds. I had confiscated my 16-year-old daughter's phone for 2 days because I wanted her to be free from distraction and have a little bit of a peaceful time and not being contacted 24/7 by her father. He actually called the sheriffs to come over to my house last night and had my 16-year-old daughter knock on my front door to request a phone. And I am absolutely blown away. And what I should have done, I should have hugged my daughter and say, this was really crazy, but I love you. Instead, I blew it and I crossed my arms and I had an argument in a very quiet, controlled way, but I was looking at my daughter's hurt eyes, but I was talking to her as if she was my ex-husband. I don't have the tools right now to separate my brain to be able to look at my daughter and not understand that this is who I'm talking to because of what it is I hear.
Yes, thank you. Thank you so much for the vulnerability and for sharing all of our, I'm sure I speak for us with our heart goes out to you. That is a tough situation to be in. I mean, my heart goes out to you. That is a tough situation to be in. Yes, yes. And Annalie, the work is in you. So you don't have the tools yet, but you can learn the tools because it's about managing, meaning the work as in how you react to her and to the cops showing up and to your ex-husband and to the interactions, right?
Yes, exactly.
Yeah. So here's some quick tools for when we get triggered, because this is what happened, right? You got triggered. It pushed a button in you and you went off. And of course, I mean, this is a big deal. So we can be compassionate for you and understand that. And every human being gets triggered. Every human being. Step one, walk away. When you can walk away, walk away. Physically walk away, because you know you're no longer in your right state of mind. You've been triggered. Somebody has pushed an internal button in you and you're no longer thinking clearly. So walk away when you can. Communicate in the most clear way, laser, meaning just get the business done and walk away. So if somebody needs you to sign something or agree to something, just agree to it and then walk away. And then you need a safe space to go to process all these feelings, because you still have to process them, by the way. Guys, we don't get rid of our feelings. We do have to feel them. So the anger, we got to let the anger out. One great tool that I use is I have a venting buddy. Once every 2 weeks, I get on a call with someone who's a safe space for me to complain about my life, for me to throw an adult tantrum. We can throw an adult tantrum. You're allowed to throw a tantrum. You're allowed to get angry and frustrated and tell everybody off, not to that person's face, because it's really not about them. It's you processing your feelings. So finding a safe space, a friend that you can do that with, who's just going to listen, by the way. Their job is just to hold the space. It's not to advise you and try to fix it for you and all of that. Trust me that once you have the space to be able to be in full victim mode for a while, it feels really good. And then you can move on from it. The key is not to stay there though. That's the key, is you can't like move in an hour, 30 minutes to get it all out and then back to neutral. It's going to be a lot of work, Annalie. You don't always have to live in neutral, but when you're with your daughter, that's the place you get to go to. Neutral, loving, but controlling what you say, managing, being aware of what you say and how you interact with her. I would also do some work before you know you're going to see her. Like if you know she's with you however many days or whatever, prepare yourself. Start preparing yourself for, okay, here's how I'm going to interact with her. Start to picture, what are the things I want to say with her? What are the things I want to say to her? How am I going to react when she says things to me? Prep your brain and your emotional state. Prepare yourself for the interaction. Okay, I hope that's helpful. I know we're at 11:15, we're at time. I want to throw it back to Phyllis. And I want to say thank you to all of you. I could stay here and go through tons more information. The takeaway is please do the growth work. Take the few tools that I taught you. And if I gave you some specific coaching, do that. The growth is in the doing part of it, not just in the learning it intellectually, but the getting it into your body and actually doing it. I hope this was helpful for all of you. Communication is key to everything we do. So learning these few tools, trust me that if you practice them, they're going to be with you for a lifetime and they're going to make a really profound effect on your life. Thank you so much. Thank you, Phyllis. And thank you,
Yes, and
Zonta
thank
Club.
you.
Thank you, Beth. Yes.
Thank you, Wendy. You've shared so many things with us to how we can better communicate with each other. And in doing that, of course, we know we're able to improve our relationships. So what a great workshop. So now I would like to say to you, mark your calendars. Our next Life Forward workshop, currently scheduled for Saturday, October the 23rd, 2021, from 10 to 11:15 is empowerment. Recognize unhealthy relationships and create boundaries. We are still working on getting a presenter for this very valuable workshop, and hope to release a flyer this week to you, so you will know definitely who the presenter will be and what the topic will consist of. Just to let you know that this topic received many votes as on a level of importance in a survey conducted this past June. So we hope that you are able to join us. And again, thanks to everyone for joining us today. I learned a lot, as I'm sure through my observation, everybody else did. You can check our website, zontascv.org, on our Life Forward workshop page, because this workshop will be posted. It's been recorded and will be posted on our workshop for you or anybody else who would like to review. So again, thank you, Wendy, and thank everybody else. And have a great day.
Thank you. Bye, everybody.
Bye.
Yes, you can message me on Instagram or send me a message through my email if you have any questions. Bye. Thank you.
Bye.